Yeah, it's easy enough. It's just HDMI.
I don't have any of the connectors.
What do you have?
USB-C in a MacBook.
Then you're fine.
That's fine, yeah. I have the sun out today.
I know,
I
it's
had
quite...
the intention of walking, and I said, you know what, I was already sweating so much for some... The central air conditioning, for some reason, they cranked it up in the night. And it was hot. I said, what's going on? I'm sweating. I just had a shower. I had another shower in my clothes.
Because the temperature outside dropped with the weather. Because I had my window open because it's always too hot in the hotel for me.
It was too hot.
So
I should have opened the window.
this morning I woke up and was like, oh, that's chilly.
So then I said, you know what, I'm not going to walk and sweat a third time.
Because it's humid as well because of all the rain we had overnight.
I took the Uber and I felt like silly taking the Uber. It's so nice.
Yeah, no. It was very hot in the hotel. Right. So, Tricia.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning. Nice today.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing all day. The same thing. So it's not autopilot. Like, am I dreaming or they do doing the exact same thing for hours and hours? And go around the different part of the screen.
Yeah. And it's actually close to your hotel.
Yeah.
Close to the arena.
Is that bill also?
You have all the buildings in the same place. It's not spread. Good morning.
Honey, how are you?
Good. You?
Good. Eating my caffeine.
Yeah. Right. I'm gonna get you.
Oh! Well, it still has 10% caffeine.
Yeah.
Is that right? 10%?
Yeah.
I don't-
It's definitely about 10%.
How about not to feel the topic? How about the non-alcoholic wine? That
Oh, yeah. It's far easier to extract that.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, wine should have these special wine because the alcohol basically puts some of the flavors from the tomato into basically a form where you totally taste them.
oh,
And,
I didn't know that.
that's why it's like you have any tomato-based sauce on, you have the water, red wine, big difference.
The opposite hop happens with what's in the kombucha, like where they.
Oh, yes.
So there, you know, if you keep it in certain temperature, the alcohol content goes up by the
Yes.
time you drink it.
Yes, that's right. Oh, yeah, because it's still fermenting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, if you need too much sun, I'm sweating again. So
Well, I've opened the window so we got a breeze blowing through. Because the air... Oh, no. This.
It's like the exhibition.
Like a slow starting this morning.
It will always be.
It would probably sort of.
Alan, can I
Yeah.
get a chance to test the
Of course, go for it. Yeah, it's hard. Just wait. It's going to be tough. Asked about blinds or cardboard boxes.
I don't even see them.
I know you have to turn everything up to max brightness.
Yeah. What do you have to
Hey, good morning.
Sí, tener el socio enseguida. Y tener entonces voy a cuando llegue ahí día es un instituto. Por el ascensor no viene.
John, thanks.
Hey, good morning.
Porque ayer lo paramos el niño. No sé, bueno, seguía.
No, yo no paré que era.
Well, maybe another 30 minutes.
I was thinking staying, hopefully 30 minutes to go up.
It's safer to always late because of something.
Oh, okay. So is it post office place? Yeah. So I would go like this.
Sunshine.
Yeah, lovely.
Morning, yeah. And you'll still, even and sort of, these and it's just, children always remain stupid. Through to basically these.
Stackuity. Right. Yeah, as in stacks. Yeah. And put your own options. Yeah. Good. Yeah, so we're on stage right. We probably should. I've got to, because we're doing.
There you go. Hey Fred, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
So we're still waiting for people to arrive. People were drinking last night. You're based over in KL?
Yes. So, I mean, KL 5 p.m.
Reasonable time. I'm sure you have to take lots of horribly timed calls being in Singapore. Not too bad.
I can hear you a little bit.
Yes, you will. So you might need to when you're presenting news. Just wait a sec. I just need to get the audio system set up. Yeah, it's just the sun is bright. I'll get through that. So it's like so damn big and the curves are so small. I'm just trying to sort out the audio because it needs to come through Okay, it's not too bad. I know. I know, it'll get better. I can see your reflection from around it. So we'll give it another like 5 minutes as people are just rolling in. Okay, Fred?
Yes, perfect. Took your advice other than checking out the nightlife of a VO last night. There was some self-study
dancing places at like 1:45 in the morning. Being taught how to dance by all the local elderly ladies.
The old ladies took their others. I'm sure it made their evening. Was there much rain in the evening? No. Okay, so it was overnight. Because we had a fair, it must have been like, 4 or 5 a.m. maybe, because the temperature dropped as well. Because I had the window open, because every hotel is too hot.
Right.
It's like, I don't understand why they have a duvet without just like a sheet.
Yeah.
Because a sheet covering me is fine. But it's like a duvet, you wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, I've wet the bed. There's just so much sweat because they have the temperature too high and the duvet.
Then the aircon makes lots of noise, so you don't want that going all night as well. Yeah.
Well, that's in America. America just loves to have the most noisiest air conditioning unit in the room. It's like, why? Why do you need to have it per room? This is balmy.
What a day.
I know.
Good morning.
It's bright, isn't it? Okay, so we're about half full, but for this time in the morning, that's good going. So welcome back. I'm glad to hear that people weren't staying out till 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, unlike when they were in Amsterdam, so that's good. I hope you had great fun yesterday evening and enjoyed the day. Yes, it was intense, and it's going to be similarly intense today as we went through all the presentations. We're going to be kicking off with 2 presentations from Asia. So we'll have one from Fred from Tenti Tech, and that's in the IoT space, and he's based over in KL. And then we'll have another from Mark. Now that's going to be more on the investor side, so similar to what Joao was presenting yesterday on how to build and then sell your company, and he's based over in Singapore. So Fred, over to you, okay?
Okay, do you have the presentation or should I share it?
Yeah, if you could share it, that would be the best way.
Okay.
It can be a little difficult with Jitsi, so...
We'll see here. Just allowed to do this, so let's see. This is the complete screen, right?
Yeah, so it's...
Can you see now?
No, I can't see it, no. So you have to share the right window. Yeah, it takes a little bit, don't worry.
How does share screen? Not much is happening there.
No, okay, don't worry. Just, now are you using PowerPoint or PDF?
PowerPoint.
Okay, so you'll need to share windows. So if you go to share screen, and you'll see there's a couple of options. Share. And you can read it. Here you go. So you go start sharing your screen. And then you'll see the entire screen, then window, you click on window, that should give you your PowerPoint.
Okay, let me see. I don't have that, you know.
Okay.
Beautiful screen, share video, show, no, maybe I'm not allowed to, you know.
Okay, just hang on a sec.
I have toggle share, screen share, but that's not for me, that's for us.
Let's see if I can find
Okay.
Let me just disconnect from here. Just need to find whatever. Find now.
I'm sharing now.
Oh yeah. There you go.
I'm sharing now, right?
Yep. Yeah. Just hang a second. Let me get.
share window, but I could share screen.
Ah, gotcha. No problem. Just hang a sec. Just getting it all.
Okay, you see my point. So if it's not,
Yep. I see a screen.
I can't actually see my. I can't actually see. I'm not sharing. Let me see here.
Okay.
If I can do that. Without the screen share window. That doesn't work. I have to share my whole screen, which means that I'm not with you guys. So
Okay.
you have to tell me if I share the whole screen.
Okay. Do you want to do that?
Now you see yourself, right?
Yeah.
And now you see my PowerPoint.
Yes. Yep.
Correct? Okay, good.
Okay. You're good.
Yes. I just run straight into the presentation. If there's any questions, you will have the ability to ask. If you want to have any questions while I'm talking, of course, it's possible also.
Okay. Perfect. Go for it.
I understand correctly. I have about 20 minutes, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. I will try to keep myself in that space.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So agenda, we will go through just a short introduction. What is an eSIM? The two main models that is active today, the end-to-end and consumer. A little bit about barriers, and then where we're coming in on consumer IoT, how to bridge this. And also how we see this market on the growth and how that's coming along in everything that's happening around us. Especially this year, but we have been in this business, or I have been in this business for a very long time. So my name is Fredrik Liljeström. I'm not Malaysian, as you can see on both my spelling, which is actually wrong here. But I'm Swedish from birth. So I'm in Asia for the moment. I've been here for quite some time, 8 years now. So the growth of connected devices and growth of eSIM in general have been in the eSIM business since 2017. So for us, it's not a surprise, and we have seen why this is being slow. We see for the normal consumer out there, this is a little bit of a different way, because it's a great tool for with the technical advance that is good for both device manufacturers, but it's scaring the mobile operators, and it's scaring the technologies, and everything is going in the correct direction. So there is no stopping this. So what is then an eSIM? The role of the eSIM or the SIM per se is no different from a normal plastic SIM card. It's just that it's divided nowadays. The combination of an eSIM profile and a secure element in a device, the combination of those two is still exactly the same as a plastic SIM card. However, for a mobile operator, there is much easier to identify an EID or the SIM card, the EUICC that's called today, from a plastic SIM card. You get more information from it, but the EUICC, the actual hardware of an embedded SIM, is provided by the device manufacturer, meaning Samsung or Apple, or an IoT and end-to-end device. It can be a car, truck, or a Wi-Fi device that is connected over 4G or 5G networks. That hardware, that secure element needs to be there, and that's called the EUICC, meaning that it's an embedded UIC. eSIM is called embedded SIM card, but the SIM card is not embedded. That's just a profile. The secure element is embedded. So this is when it starts getting confusion for people. And where you need to be thinking in a different way, because it's basically just another form factor. It's a plastic SIM card if that's a MFF2 or a 2FF or whatever we should call the different form factors, it's still the same. For the mobile operator, when these two parts are combined together, meaning the secure element in the phone and the ICC ID profile, then the mobile operator can actually not see any difference between a phone with what's called an eSIM or a phone with a plastic traditional SIM card. There is no difference. For the mobile network, it works exactly the same. But from the devices and the platform that we provide from 10T, then you can actually get more information. You can have a comparison. So if you take a SIM card today and you just slide that into the SIM card, slide it into the phone, immediately when that happens, the mobile operator, someone is trying to connect to the network with this type of ICC ID or want to activate to download a specific environment into the phone for them to optimize on the network side and stuff like that. So for this device management system, then the information that we have of the eSIM platforms is very, very useful, especially when it comes to IoT. So there is end-to-end model and the consumer model. What you see with Apple and Samsung and these is of course the consumer model. And we have a lot more volume on that than we have on the end-to-end today. Basically every single Apple and XR have been able to download eSIM profiles, and of course there is a lot of volumes of eSIM out there, but the penetration to consumer is basically the same. The volume is not consumer and the M2M, is that the consumer is pulling down a profile down to the phone, while the M2M is pushing down an eSIM profile to the device. So the M2M is a remote, while consumer. Then of course there is a bunch of different things in the background on how it's actually run and these things, but to see is still the same. And the certificate issuer is also common. Mainly because the MNOs, the mobile network operators, is very afraid of eSIM, because it's the plastic SIM card or the SIM card is the last hardware that they actually provide to mobile operators. They don't really know how to handle this with sending QR code or having a fully digital customer onboarding, because they want to see their customer coming into the stores or to the dealer, and they are very, very dependent on the dealer and the dealer networks, which is a little bit strange, because mobile operator, I would say that they would like to get away from dealers, especially external dealers. Because as you all know, a dealer is calling up a mobile customer and saying, do you want to have this new with T-Mobile or AT&T or whatever that might be? And when they have signed up a deal, and they go over to T-Mobile. So they are super scared of from the commercial part, there is a key barrier on the consumer model. Thales and G&D and these guys, they normally sell this as a way to acquire customers in a different way, or have a lot of difficulties. You have cellular only, for example, which means something to a phone. You need to have a bootstrap operator, and that's you would like to have an eSIM in M2M, machine to machine, right? That you want to choose the mobile operator initial demand to actually get an eSIM into an end-to-end device is that you need to have a bootstrap mobile operator. Then you still need to choose the mobile operator before you even put the eSIM into an end-to-end device. So solution, what you want to have solved with an eSIM, the mobile, if you want to provide an eSIM for the devices, it can be a heart monitor controlling or a device that's controlling pacemaker and downloading for that. You have to go in and do some other maneuvers to get the initial. Look at either end-to-end eSIM device, we still need to have connectivity from the beginning, or you can go in and you connect and download your eSIM profile. The LPA, one kind of IP connectivity. It can be a cable at the LPA, the interface, to download the profile to the device, a profile eSIM into the consumer IoT space, a volume based in a different way. So we have, from 10T, we have a number of pilot projects to. Then, of course, to reach these use cases, select the best data plans for international, add personal health device to existing carrier subscription, consumer world in a different way. And of course, it also creates a stickiness for the mobile and just share the bucket of data that they have. So a higher flexibility for them. Lowest down here is an electrical meter, for example. Then they can select the different, maybe price, maybe which one you prefer, maybe which meter. Then you need to choose the one that has the best signal for that specific location. Not going to move. So then that opens up a different type to actually activate that needs to be. And at the growth, 80%, then 5% of the eSIM is with the fairly low penetration of eSIM. We do see now with eSIM only devices coming into the market that this is coming hard. And also that we see that only a couple of hundred mobile operators globally that actually have eSIM capabilities. While we are happy with the increase of traffic, but we are expecting much more coming along for this. To support eSIM only devices, of course, that will be a bigger unit also. We do see this a lot. And be opening up for questions.
Excellent, thank you so much, Fred. Any questions for Fred? I've got a quick one, Fred. Oh, are you there? Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
This is just a personal one. You know, when I look at eSIM, the roaming case for me is the most interesting. But you know, there's just, again, it comes back to the point you were making before in terms of barriers. Because it's, you know, I don't want to use my carrier's plan because I'm roaming into another country and I'm going to be using a lot of data. For those consumer scenarios.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see that super interesting because this whole business opens up a brand new way of doing business. For example, we're providing services to one of our providers is owner of low cost flight to have the insurance when you go travel. The same way they can do. So while you're going on vacation, you scan your flight ticket and you get an eSIM profile for the period of time that you're abroad. And then when you go back, you're back on because it's always better to be local.
Yep.
The connectivity is local. the endpoint of the IP endpoint is local. You're going straight out. If you are a US citizen and you're going to Philippines, the traffic is actually going all the way to US and then out to again. Right? So I mean, we all know, and you especially that's in the business, you know that you don't want to have all of that traffic back and forth away around. You want to get out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So local is the absolute best, right?
Yep.
And especially when we come to 5G, right? When you start measuring 5G, you have the actual latency in 5G is measured in nanosecond. You don't want to travel around the world first and then come out, because you will just lose everything. So local termination is always the best, and you can only get that with a local connectivity. So then that's where you want to be. You have a bunch of different services. You have Power today, you have Flexi-Roam, you have a number of these apps that's coming down that you just activate and buy your connectivity for that you are on vacation, for example.
Excellent.
Of course, if you go to your European customer, then there is no rule. But it is still, you might want to be local brick just because of the speed. So it's always that part. So that's, I see, yes, the roaming is one part, but it's also speed to get out. And that part, not only.
Anything else for Fred? If not, again, Fred, thank you so much. That was great. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks guys, thanks.
Okay, I can see Mark, you were there.
I think I'm here, Alan. Can you see me?
We can see you. With your background as well, so you are all corporate.
Well, I'm going to see whether I can now share some screens. So hang on.
No worries, yeah. So, as I mentioned yesterday, Mark was there with us 10 years ago in Bangkok. So, yeah, I even had a picture of him there in one of the panel discussions. So, cool. You can see your presentation.
Fantastic. Well, look, advisor with the Quorum Group here in Singapore, but back in 2013, running my Australian software business Locatrix for a few years, and I do note, Alan, you reminded me 2013 was Bangkok, and it's now 2022, and we're still doing location-based services that we had built for carriers like Telstra and Virgin Mobile in the world. But I've had kind of a change of career since then, and I'll mention briefly that I sold Locatrix in 2018. For the last nearly 4 years, I've been up in Singapore. Most of which I spent with me wearing a tie. Alan knows I'm more comfortable being a t-shirt guy at a developer conference. But in addition to selling Locatrix, which I did, I also had spun off a company from the University of Queensland back in, I guess we kicked that off in about 2001, 2002. To doing the entrepreneurial thing, I was working both here and also back in Australia for Red Hat, but also Compaq, and through that acquisition of Tandem Computers. And Tandem was kind of where I got my telecoms job. Today, or historically, for its financial institution work, does and did actually do a lot of work in the sort of contributed to both TADSummit and TADHack around the place. So again, congratulations to Alan. And for everyone who's many times that TADSummit was the best single technology conference I ever went to. So, excuse me. So we primarily work sell-side and only with software and technology companies. And that's quite unique. We're not trying to get deals all over the place. We really focus on software and technology, a niche in the overall M&A market. But two, it's one where we're able to contribute an awful lot of value, both through our education today, but also the fact that we spend a lot of time teaching entrepreneurial Series A funding, or all sorts of folks will give you advice. But when it comes to actually how you would exit or realize some sort of value from the company, there's not a lot out there. This is one of the ways in which I'm really pleased that Quorum does spend a lot of time talking to entrepreneurs and through a bunch of courses, financial associates and things like that. We do work on deals, but the 20 very proud about is we probably sold more software-related firms than anyone. That's not an idle boast, that's a fact. So pretty interesting firm, and it's a pretty broad church. I'll do a bit of a breakdown of the types of companies, because it is very diverse, both in terms of the types of companies that are in the communication sector, some different ways in which valuations in the communication sector, both sort of current year to date and the last few years, how that's trending. We'll also talk about transaction time. But I do want to encourage you, I'll make sure Alan has the slides. A lot of people, particularly, you just say the magic word, TADSummit. So in terms of where we're seeing the community, take it with a grain of salt, it's the number of transactions which were actually published, which were advertised, which were press released, however it was, not all values attached, but the number of deals we've seen in the attributable to the communication sector. And interesting about the volume of deals in M&A is it's still pretty heavily leveraged towards strategics. And by strategics, I mean, think of the brand name companies. It's the Googles, it's the Facebooks, it's the IBMs, it's the, it's the big companies who are acquiring another company with strategic value. But we are seeing some, activity, particularly in the private equity side. And I know there's probably a lot of, relatively small-sized technology entrepreneurs in the room who are thinking, well, private equity is something which never has entered your radar. One of the most surprising things, if you look at M&A today, particularly as it pertains to software and technology, is how active the private equity firms are, and can be in a certain sector of private equity firms, in doing deals which are, not just obviously acquiring bigger or platform companies that they want to try and grow, but also then acquiring what we call bolt-ons, smaller companies that either fit a particular product, complementary product or sector, or potentially a market or a region that can really add value to that platform. And what's interesting is if you look at all the private equity deals that we see across all of software technology each year, there's no bolt-on transactions to each one platform deal. So it really does become an interesting option for entrepreneurs of companies of a certain size that want to be able to look for a way to sort of realise the value that we include in communications technology. I generally talk about sort of the main sort of UCaaS, CPaaS, potentially that's a bucket where you see a lot of the value-added things like AI and chat and things like that, communications, capabilities on top of a basic network. So this is January 1 through September 30. There's been 122 characteristics of communications technology. There's still a lot of activity in the strategic acquisition space. Now, if you look at industry-wide, what you tend to see nearly $100 billion. It's much less this year, not because there hasn't been as much activity. We've just had less of those mega deals. I think the number, while it's substantially less than 1.7.7, it's not dramatically less in actions. And this is really representative of the number of opportunities there are for entrepreneurs, CEOs who've built up some good, interesting technology and hopefully revenue-making, hopefully profit-making companies to actually look for decent acquisition options. Excuse me. Now, one of the things that I find a little bit interesting about the communications sector is just at the moment, from an activity standpoint. So again, these are deals that have been announced in the market. It's still very US-centric. I know you're sitting there in Europe. There's a lot of folks in Europe. And what is perplexing to me is the amount of innovation I'm seeing in Asia, and the fact that historically, we haven't seen a large percentage of, and that's the sellers, so this is a geographic thing of sellers, but if you look at the buyers, the actual buyers are even more USA-centric. Just starting to tell me, hey, we're starting to look beyond the UK and the US. So we're starting to look towards that rest of the world. In that rest of the world bucket, that absolutely includes me. Anyone who's not sort of UK-centric or North American, where a lot of the growth will come in 2023 and beyond. Now, I mentioned before the private equity firm, a relatively small sample frame in terms of only 122. It is always dominated by the private equity firms, usually by a ratio of 3 or more to 1. So this means that there's more deals happening, potentially a private equity firm backed small strategic company. If you could look for some of the trends and rationales for buyers acquiring companies, actually able to start looking at, well, we'd be a really good bolt-on for that. And this is one of the things that Quorum was particularly focused on because it's an area that most soft target markets for their software or for their product. You can sell your product, sell your service, but when it comes to buyers, how do you identify the folks that would be actually big buyers? You tend to gravitate your thoughts towards the strategics, and one of the things that's really useful to understand is just the role that the private equity firms play. In particular, we've had a bit to do lately with Grain and Stone Peak, and they're particularly not directly acquisitive outside of North America just yet, but starting to get that appetite. And looking at the communications sector in particular as something that they want to be able to spend more time would start increasingly have a greater appetite for. So, I guess the take home from that is if you're a software or technology CEO in the communications space and you're thinking you'd ultimately like to realise your investment, and there's many reasons, and again, I won't go into all the details of different ways in which rationales for selling a company, but there are many reasons you would go to market. But if you want to be able to look at, trying to sort of calibrate how in the market, it's a pretty good time sort of now. The Striker acquisition was actually, the Striker acquisition of Era was actually relatively small, at $3 million. What's interesting about that one is, as a communications provider and collaboration provider, was a really strong valuation publishing. If anyone wants to get that, please reach out and drop me a note. I'll certainly get a link to it and tweet it out so that the TADSummit folks can get it. But there's sometimes we're seeing that if you look at the ranges of valuations, we always talk about multiples of either EBITDA or revenue. They tend to skew higher, clearly, as bigger company value. And these innovative areas on top of communications. We're adding some AI, machine learning, because this is the space as a sort of service provider in the unified communications. It's all exclusively kind of North American and Western Europe. But what's interesting about this deal was a relatively decent sized deal for a provider that wasn't really a great valuation. So we're sort of tracking some of these. Again, it's hard to look at any single transaction and point at that and say, well, exactly like that. You've got to be able to look at a range of transactions to be able to understand sort of where you'll sit from a valuation standpoint. And this is another one. Again, what's kind of interesting about this is, outside of that North America and UK bubble, we see most of the sellers and buyers coming from the same place, which suggests to me that there's not a lot of appetite just yet for sellers to actually start to think about, well, who else would I sell to? And one of the things I can absolutely encourage, a lot of the entrepreneurs in the room is, if you're thinking about you'll ever want to sell, there will be huge benefits in looking well and truly beyond your national borders or your regional borders when it comes to finding acquirers, because, again, the expansion appetite for a lot of the private equity-backed smaller strategics to move into different markets is only growing. And, so this is just an interesting example to look at, but, just from a telltale. And look, we've tried to, it's a pretty start to move more in 2023 and beyond. You'll see a lot more deals, and you will provide better customer experiences. And communication services, in all their various forms and capabilities, does community experience. And I think going forward, that's probably where we're going to see the greatest innovation, and ultimately a ton of again, sitting out here in Singapore and working primarily in the Asia Pacific region, clearly the largest hubs for the communications MMA. But I think Asia and parts of Europe really are underexploited. Anecdotally, I can talk about a number of the different firms we've been talking about. Contact solutions all remain strong. But there is going to be, there is obviously a large appetite for consolidation. And again, this is the opportunity of this. It's all, here's the thing, it's all free. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. But if you look at the quorumgroup.com events, there's a number of education-based, really, and we do them right around the world. Currently they're online, although that was a post-pandemic thing. We're starting to do more and more as well, which are really worthwhile. And I do mention there is a regular one coming up now around communication, but it's always good as a CEO to understand where you're headed. And look, in conclusion, and Alan, I hope I'm ahead of schedule. I think I'm pretty close to it. Building out better products and be the guy that is trying to one up with, if that makes any sense.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Just a quick one. So you gave an example there of OnSIP being bought by UMA, but I thought OnSIP was bought by Intrado.
What we see sometimes is deals get announced but not ultimately concluded. That's probably a separate discussion. And one of the reasons why doesn't make a lot of sense ever to look at, a very small sample transaction as one that's kind of interesting. And I've got to be clear, we didn't do OnSIP. It wasn't a client. So I don't have a lot of big insight on that. What was interesting about it, Alan, is that the valuation multiple, which was published, 2 to 3 times revenue. So, there were obviously complicating factors. And I mention that just because whenever you start to delve into particular sectors of M&A, looking at one thing I will say, the only way you're ever going to get a really good answer to the question, what is my company worth, calibrated in a global market? And that's enough of the pitch from forum today.
No, all right.
Thank you, everyone. And if there's any other...
We've got 15 that's the 6 of the project.
Do you need...
Actually, mine?
Yes. Okay, perfect.
The other ones that didn't present. The ones that didn't present on this laptop,
So again, what's the best ongoing story? That is Sebastian.
As a telecoms grassroots project, it's not really a grassroots project as such now, but it started as one. And I started with the question, are we there yet? I wanted to present actually our way. I got to change it a bit and tell you why we're not there yet. So the short answer is no, we're not there yet as a big company. So I want to recap a bit what we've done in the past 2 years. Shortly, whether we're there or not, and what are the reasons, and in the end talk a bit about innovating from a big incumbent, looking at the specifics of FTT. So I'm not part of technology, we do aggregation, we do global networks, so C cables, all that stuff is in our unit, and I'm there as an architect and working on the communication space. So in short, one of the key slides here, and I stole a picture from Ellen from yesterday, and I'll explain you why, is my journey with CPaaS, how long can it possibly take? And I want to start with a bit of a black and white view. The good, the bad, the ugly. I liked that yesterday in the presentation because it's really, there's a lot of good that happens, and looking at it really black and white helps a bit to give a very frank kind of opinion. It's my opinion, so it's not really anything that is a marketing deck, but really experiences doing this. And one of a few of the good points I want to mention, so we are now at a point where CPaaS is discussed at board level, where it's a topic that most of the people, when you talk about APIs, they know what APIs are. They know in general how to use them, what it means. They might understand it's digital business, whatever that is. But in general, it's a term that people understand exposing capabilities and not just having them in your products, but making something important. And it's good to have that momentum. We started with and you'll see that here on the right side. I'll kind of combine that a bit. In 2020, I did CPaaS myself and WebRTC for much longer, so there are talks dating back possible. And so we started with that. We selected a partner for the telecom developer portal. So all of that happened already back when people were asking, what is this? Why is it happening? Why is valuation so high? Why is Twilio valued so high? That really hasn't happened before, even though Twilio dates back much longer. And on the last live event about Twilio versus telco and how to compare it and why it's not really comparable in other parts. So to have this awareness, looking at where we started, which was really just an idea of saying, hey, we have to do this. We cannot always explain that telephony and SMS are somewhat declining, and that's okay because it's not actually declining. It's just shifting from so it's easy to kind of bash telcos and say, oh, but you always have these gems in many units, and once you make these connections, it's something really good. So I can just encourage everyone with options. One of the challenges at the beginning was that to exchange your thought, it won't necessarily change your view, but at least you understand a bit better where the other turns with it, let's say. I have not seen these dynamics when decades old. It's much harder to bring them forward, and you will see fear of so-called cannibalization. So, whether it's your SMS or my SMS shouldn't really matter for a company at scale. The same comes even in the microcosmos of our unit. You have people that sit on SMS, you have people that sit on voice minutes, and from a CPaaS perspective, it's all a transaction, and you want to monetize the transaction and monetize what's on top of it, but for the individuals running voice and SMS, it's necessarily, it does matter whether it's an SMS or a voice message. So it's not really like a bad thing, but it's just something you have to cope with, and you have to know. And one of the reasons why 2022 was a bit like a black hole, where a lot of the efforts got sucked into discussing things like this and others. You have processes that are much more complicated in big carriers, and all of a sudden, also one of the things, I'll bring that in later, one of the biggest challenges was when the small incubation unit, we had a lot of management support. It was really great, and we were not really challenged essentially with the process everyone has to deal with. And normally staff projects have much more people, go as fast as they could. On the other hand, I think still on a very good way. Last point, think, should we do this, should we not do it, question the right to play, even though it's fairly obvious that there is one in my opinion. So it's in my opinion, yeah, it's something you are going to face, and of course in such a top company skyrocket and ideas skyrocket. Of course people might think it makes sense to just try to involve people quite a lot, transformation and skill transformation and getting people there that they are actually able to understand what their customer, that others have done already, but really try to do this to yourself. Try to also transform your technology competencies from classic core. I think sometimes in the discussions I've seen, not really in that project and not with, it's nothing particular, but I think it's something worth having in mind when it comes to a big, one of those big incumbents doing something like this that you just have to deal with, and that it's really slowing you down. So looking at the right side here, this is a very few milestones of that journey from 2020, as I mentioned already, 2022. By end of 22, we had a platform live. We had it connected to our voice and SMS termination. So it was essentially, you could, when you would make a call, it would end up in a minute. In our platform, we had already a telecom developer portal prototype live, and we had a partner do that. We even had some informal POCs where companies asked us and they said, hey, we heard you do CPaaS, can you help us here? A customer wants this, and we did kind of a demo for them, and they liked it, and they were like, can we use it for testing things? And you might not be there yet commercially, but once you're there, we just want to, we want to give you some feedback. That was quite good, but we could do this already. But yeah, in the end, we had a portal with a CPaaS service integrated, and that was exciting because it was rather short. We met the right people throughout that process. Then in 21, we did a lot of internal awareness campaigns. The benefit was we did that not with slideware, but with something actual, tangible to show. So we could do demos. We could, log in a CPaaS platform, make a call, have a phone ring, edit the text in there, have it ring again. The text-to-speech would be adapted. It's small rings in the end. It's cool. Yeah, we did an RFQ for finding solution partners. We have had decisions of 2022, we can start onboarding customers and getting it out there. And then 2022 was this big, as I said, a big black hole where a lot of where really time went. But this is when we really needed to, go to the organization and involve colleagues that are usually part of a product introduction process and actual connectivity and all these things. This just takes time, and it's hard for a small incubation team to do that when you don't have the scale it would need to really address all the stakeholders. Your presentation, yeah, I think is quite accurate. Just a quick overview of what we are working on when it comes to CPaaS, when it comes to cloud communications. So it's actually not just CPaaS as such, a communication platform as a service or APIs on top of our enablers. It's much more essentially that we want to, and their customers, enterprises, so B2B, B2B2X, really looking at having enabling companies and enterprises to engage with their customers. And for this, we are setting up kind of a portfolio consisting of enablement. We have omnichannel as part of programmable communications, which includes different, also RCS there, which is one of the telco channels, but of course it needs to be extended with a numbers product where you would enable, again, our wholesale customers mostly and our own services to integrate phone numbers. From a number I want to receive that, you need actually enabled by CPaaS. And why do I think it's interesting? It's not necessarily only from an iceberg perspective, the things you see, it's the exposure, so it's very interesting. It's the usual suspect feedback when people not so familiar and so long into it will move through that. What are used features, what are not used, and those are some of the things you can of course get with CPaaS, with the events that people go through IVRs or with the way people interact with these applications. You get of course analytics as well as being a side product of older legacy apps, but it's not really has been part of these kind of IN applications, something like from. as being the enablers for possibility to not just provide a voice service, but voice as one of many features that would be it impacts also billing and other things. How and I think that's one of the major also looking ahead. What's beyond CPaaS, let's say in the beginning, CPaaS 1.0 or whatever you want to call it. So beyond just enabling, what can you do after once you have these capabilities? One of the key points. And the last thing I think is the setup you have when you do this. So some things you may want to build, with some things you want to partner, but you want to also carefully select with whom you partner, and not just on a horizontal layer, meaning building up the API stack, let's say, layer by layer, but also on a vertical integration layer, what kind of capabilities, such as text-to-speech and so on, you pull in, what do you maybe have available in other departments. All of these things, I think, are very, very relevant, and none of this is classic NT work, let's say. So what an NT team and a carrier would usually not think about these things, but when it comes to CPaaS, it's really important. And from an evolutionary step, and looking at, I now swap the iceberg, if you wish, so this here is the top, and it's really a thing, connecting endpoints with server application. It's also an existing business model. In the end, we're going to charge per message sent. We're going to have a country-based charging. First iterations, you validate use cases, you think of what that, but for carriers, it's still new. And that doesn't just mean that WebRTC is standard, yet you have WebRTC in your phones, you have APIs that serves. You can get a dedicated network link if you want that, the same way Voice over LTE does it. So, an LTE network, WebRTC can be that app as well. And you need to start looking at it, I would say, from that perspective, and that's disruptive because it affects pricing, it affects how you understand intercarrier work. I think that the conferencing use case is quite an interesting one. I can use WebEx application. They use it in the future. Maybe we use it. So that would be kind of the evolution we're looking at. It's not communications as a separate source. The prevalence, the example kind of here. And then we have also, again, business model disruptions, new pricing, you have internal competition because a minute before now, and you have, the whole industry, let's say, with intercarrier charges, when you terminate in other networks you pay, when traffic is terminated you earn money, all of a sudden you don't have carriers using the same CPaaS platform, you could even bypass that entirely, that interconnection on the connectivity layer, just do it on the top layer. So there's a lot of that. You can have a different kind of communications layer if you wish, similar languages. We have TWIML, we have RCML, we have LAML, we have communication is just yet another enabler, yet another service. It's nothing special. This sense of entitlement in telecoms that we also see when it comes to CPaaS. You have discussions. I think this is something we really need to overthink. And last but not least, as I mentioned, carrier relations and also regulations is something that will eventually evolve, and it's up to us as well how we can drive that, I would say, in a way, because it's necessary. It was necessary for things like voice over Wi-Fi, where you no longer, the physical link, and we talked earlier when we heard about the SIM card. It's not necessarily the plastic versus the other. It's the physical link that you have with this endpoint, and with WebRTC and with browser-based access technologies, all of that goes away, and that disrupts the telco dynamics and such. And then there's the practical view of this iceberg, which is less about things I spoke so far, but more about, you have on the top the features, the partners, you need to select them carefully. You want to partner with companies that don't steal your customers or that don't steal the competency in your company. You don't want them to poach your good people. You actually want them to work together and to learn from each other. Innovation team, the team that starts something like this, if you want to do it right, you cannot do it off the legacy stuff. The classic NT approach doesn't work here because standardization, everything has different pace, in my opinion at least. You will face a lot of legal challenges, and you need to align strategies. There's, at a certain size, if you're not like that, you are not this big company anymore. You will eventually die out, and because we managed to stay that big and that relevant, it's essentially also the idealistic. I think why are we doing it is a question that we are asked frequently, and also put your telcos up in CPaaS, and I believe certainly not. And some of the things might sound like cliche, but I think there is something behind it once you really talk to customers, once you look at people, when they may not know they need SMS as an API, but when they want to discuss something they have in mind where SMS and telephony is involved, you should create it, and having access directly to the network is also, I think, a benefit, and we've seen this in countless of what Twilio offers. It would be, may have been the better compromise, because we've seen things now happening to for the substance. But when you really say what we offer has its price, and you manage to establish this as well in the market. That's why I put this award sign here. The network tests for DT are good ones, and deception you build on with such a proposition. And I think this can be a very powerful one. And last but not least, we offer, of course, like network experience within the company about developers. And it's as trivial as it sounds, you cannot do this today. Features with partners in there. We have POCs about network capabilities. There was a talk the other day on a Total Telecoms event where this was presented, and we have use cases with partners that consume these APIs. That's going to be in that portal. So it's a growing thing. It's real. We also have the mindset of learning, of understanding what works, what doesn't. QoS is always something as well where you say, well, do you need QoS for videos if the codecs are so good that most situations they can cope with? How often are you on a mobile network? But all of these questions, let's say, we can tackle and we can actually learn from practical experience, and we have a framework behind that and the mindset and the team behind that from the board down to the think about something like this, or those that partner with telcos. It's not always.
I need to congratulations for your resilience. Knowing service providers from inside out, I know you. Question I had. I mean, I can totally understand all your internal challenges, etc., but you didn't mention how you intend to sell this product. Are you going through the process of enabling your own Salesforce to do it? Because from experience, the skill set that you require to go out there and sell this is completely different from just selling Cloud PBX or numbers.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So the question was how we're going to sell this. I think it's going to be a multitude of approaches. There's going to be a developer portal for developers that can sign up there. Now you won't get an application if I advise. I don't have just the classic CPaaS provider to advise on and think of how I get connectivity I have now. And last but not least, I think a lot will be also through solutions in the end, right? So you will need to have always the same, and then you can think of whether you want to invest in that and build these solutions. And these solutions are then something that you believe the foundation is something you've got to produce yourself, but then develop in the medical area, in the transport area, in other areas, and they might use your features or yours. It will be, this is more of an optimization of being found and of getting the managers pull in, seek the APIs, and if somebody needs it, they can get it. So I think it's going to be a multitude of things through partners and through existing by aggregators at the moment. That's one of the main benefits. We know they send us, and we know kind of what we don't get at these margins. We give them away, and getting this in-house, serving customers directly, and is something that is, I think, a motivation to do that, and we got to see how we sell it in the end.
Exactly, and partial, it's copy Twilio. They partner with Delight. Delight basically uses their developer portal because it's quick, easy, get it hacked up, then basically sell it to the customer. So it's just the same model. And some telcos have bought system integrators. And
we have two systems, by the way. I mean, we have two systems. We partner with some others, so that
they're part of Deutsche Telekom. They're a big telco. But they do, in some cases, buy system integrators and don't kill them or don't basically turn them into zombies, and they do good work. So I think when you said the system integrator, it's just hit the nail on the head. It's basically more of a B2B, but you have the developer portal there so that the people on the ground can just get stuff working fast, because that's the key. Well, that was cool. Excellent. Again, thank you so much. Just hang on a sec. Is this?
Yeah, we've got snooze in there.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, just let me get you up on the screen. There you go. He wasn't able to join us in person. He is sad about that, not just for meeting the people, but the fact that we'll hand over to you, Jesus.
Thank you, Alan. Hello, everyone. I've seen that you have. Okay, let me just share presentation.
Yeah. Hope you can see.
Yep.
Okay, so much in line with Sebastian's presentation, which has been really cool for me. As I'll say, we are presenting a couple of years from now. We are engagement of the IGAT group, which is becoming mentioning the devices department, where we are trying to do some cool telco and IT stuff. Some spoilers. So maybe let's that question, right? So telcos can hesitate to decide if move on or not. So there are some reasons. One of them is, as we know, that telcos are not innovating at the speed rate for on that. So it's difficult to build by ourselves that are behind. And the crucial question is CPaaS services for our customers. On this question, we'll elaborate on why we think so. So there are some reasons to believe. Is it now better?
Oh yeah, far better. Yep, that's far better.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I was saying that there are some reasons to believe, and let's see which are these are the most popular brands for the customers. This is related also with the sales network that telcos have. So we have sales people traveling during the whole country for B2B are really an opportunity for increasing customer base, for frequency, right? Already, and which lessons we have during this journey. Okay, so we have, as we presented like 2 years ago, we have a service, virtual PBX service called Virtual Centralka. It's almost 6 years already in production. It's mobile only, and during all these years we have added plenty of functionalities that make it a possible solution, like a call center for not only really small businesses but even medium ones. As you can see, I will not list all the functionalities that we have and more. We have in a web panel you can configure plenty of functionalities regarding SMS. You can configure campaigns, personalized campaigns. Functions are built on using APIs. So this is also important. This is more related, for instance, to CRM functionalities. That it's not a telco functionality, so we are not CRM experts. There are plenty of CRM solutions, and B2B customers are more related to more informed about these services that they can buy by ourselves. So I think in this case it's kind of better to integrate with the partner, with the CRM partner, and share revenue. And of course, this will be needed. For this integration, APIs are mandatory, right? And much in line with your discussion with Sebastian, in our case, we failed to provide the developer portal. We failed in terms that we didn't have enough support from the organization to do that. But I believe that it was maybe because the business case, right, it was not so attractive like providing CPaaS services. But providing APIs along with your services, it could increase your customer base, because there are some customers that they have developers, or there is some technical guy, and besides the interface from the web panel, if they can use APIs, it will be really, when you launch your service, you start having your first client, any customer wants, even if it is one customer. This is also related to the Joao comments from yesterday. Monitoring everything is so be high, right? A couple of years ago, and we have some issues. So you have to take care that it's not only your customers' data, it is the data of the customers of your customer, right? And a breach of data of any recording or whatever, it could have really bad implications. So this is quite important, and that's why we added the end-to-end encryption. So all recordings, on even all the text message data are encrypted with the public key of the customer. So we don't have the private key. So if it will be a kind of lack of breach of data from our customers, it will be encrypted, right? So user experience. We are quite happy how our completely not out of the industry, but are not technical, and maybe they are not in CPaaS, because for sure they have really huge value and ideas that you wouldn't came to. And this is also quite important. Be your first client. So if you can, of course, use your solution before launch, but if not, even use your solution after launch. So just an example, our Network Operations Center, our NOC, when the pandemic started, they had to work from home, so they were sitting here in the office, and we configured for them our virtual PBX, and they are using till today. So first of all, not only they can raise some bugs, but they can also have some ideas. For instance, thanks to that, we just implemented a feature that is called on-call, right? So if you redirect a call to a group of people and there is an on-call engineer, all the calls will be directed to the on-call engineer, and only in case he is not answering, you will hand him to the rest of the users, right? And about Branch SMS Gateway, we are also, some departments in the company is using this service. And yes, I think that this feedback is really valuable when you are using for yourself. Okay, so just finishing with some next steps. Yeah, I just added some new features that we would like to integrate. For sure, something about speech, machine learning, AI, some sentiment, and so on. We would like to test at least. But this is not so easy, or we will have to eventually check some solutions ready out there. Outbound IVR, just for providing to our customers campaigns, voice campaigns, right? Not only SMS campaigns. We will try to avoid some robocalls and some spam. Convergence as well. For medium companies, still C phones, those phones are still used. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Now we're running a little bit behind time, so unfortunately, Jesus, we won't be able to do Q&A because I need to get the schedule back on track, otherwise lunch is going to be too short. But that was excellent. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Bogdan, you could come on down, get yourself set up. You and what I'd ask for each of the presenters up until lunch, if you could keep your session down to 20 minutes rather than 25, and we'll skip Q&A as well.
So first, quickly, just what OpenSIPS is. We call it a multi-purpose SIP server. Basically, you can do more or less everything when it comes to SIP signaling, because it's a very flexible, configurable. So basically, you program what you want to do. You can program it to act as, for example, SBC, as a soft switch, or maybe you want like a PBX or whatever. And this is thanks to configuration language and also to quite a huge number of modules that actually provide a lot of functionalities and support in different areas, like SIP area, in